Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to actually another live broadcast for this week. It's been a busy week for live broadcasts. This one in particular is to talk to you and show you, with the help of our guest in a second, our latest style pack, which is Elevation Styles by none other than Paul Reiffer. So we're going to go and find Paul right now on screen. Here he is. Oh, let's get his name up just in case no one knows who he is and me. Paul is out shooting in Arizona at the moment, so it's very early for Paul.
Yep.
So thanks for getting up for us. And the plan is today really is to look at the style pack that Paul has created for us and run through some examples and answer your questions. So nice and simple, really. So I'm going to bring up your screen. Hopefully we don't have any technical issues. Backup is that I show you what's going on with Paul Styles on my screen because of internet things, but hopefully we should be all right. So here we go. So what can you tell us about the pack?
Yep. So internet. Remember, it's a world wide web. It all
The
works.
World Wide Web, yes.
So styles. I guess the first thing that in fact, you and I, David, have talked about before is
yes.
I guess the understanding of styles and what they are and what they're not, or what they're not meant to be to a certain extent. So the style pack that we've built is designed to get people to what I would call 70%, which is kind of that break point of you've got an idea of the direction that picture's going in, you've got an idea of the color grading, you've got an idea of some of the tweaks and adjustments you want to make. It's not going to make every picture perfect, and that goes for any style pack. It's simply not designed to be a one-click dang and off you go. You can use it that way, but you will end up with exactly what we've prescribed in the style for every one of your photographs. So, life's about choices and all that stuff. So
it's very rare to get a one-click magic bullet in a style that
exactly
just works for everything, and that shouldn't be the expectation either.
Yeah. So what we've done, we've built basically 4 key, let's call them core styles for cities.
Okay.
And 4 core styles for landscapes. So strangely, they're under a heading here of cities and landscapes, and we'll talk about how they get installed later on. But those styles are based on a lot of work that I've done over the years with cityscape shooting, so nighttime cities, light trails, skyscrapers, all that sort of stuff. And then the other side of it is, I guess, the golden hour sort of period. So that period just before and just after sunrise and sunset. And what we found was a lot of people were having the same questions, same queries come up about how do I make sure a light trail is nice and sharp? How do I make the city sort of come to life? When you're actually shooting a city, it feels very full of energy. It's quite energetic. There's neon, there's glow, and then you look at the back of the camera and go, oh, it's a bit yellow.
It's disappointing.
It's a bit bad. Yeah. So and actually, there are certain things that we would do the same way, roughly. To get to 70%. So we built a style pack, or 4 different style packs around that. Same with landscape. So when you're shooting golden hour, same challenges lots of people have. How do I define the sun? How do I not do it? How do I undefine the sun, I guess? So how do I get a soft glow? How do I warm things up? How do I cool things down? And the tweaks that we do in styles are more than just white balance. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people get confused. They think it's just a white balance shift, and actually no, there's color grading, there's luminosity changes in there's curves in there to try and tweak things, and they're all tools that I think a lot of people, when they first start using Capture One especially, look at as they're the scary tools, because the easy tool is the white balance one and the HDR sliders, because they have an immediate effect and they're kind of safe.
Yes.
When we get into the more complex tools, they get a bit scary. So we've built I guess some collections around safe styles that will deliver a really cool city look, or a really warm and welcoming, or in fact cool in one case, but landscape look, with the ability to change that on a layer, to change the opacity, to change the tools that are in there. It's all exposed, so there's nothing hidden in there, and that's the same for any style. So you can go in and see, and you can apply that style to make a city or a landscape look very different. So, we take this one, for example, so this is pretty much out of camera, but we'll talk about that in a second. If I choose one of these Blockbuster styles, so maybe the one that lifts the shadows as well. So we go from, let's just apply that to a new layer. We'll talk about that in a second as well. So we go from a very, very warm, very, very glowy sort of image to a ultra cool, modern sort of look for a city. It's got an orange and teal effect applied to it as well. And that just gives us a different feel, different mood to that city.
And is this style targeted specifically for like nighttime city shots?
Yeah, so if you look here, for example, we're pulling in things like light trails, we're pulling in all the detail and so on. We're also, in every single style that's in this pack, there are 4 options. So you've got the default, and in fact, let's just turn this off and we'll go back into it. So we've got the default, which will take as is and then apply a color grade. You've got the highlight protection version, which will do exactly the same, but protect highlights more.
Okay.
You've got the shadow increase version, which, especially in cities at night, you've got some challenges with the dark spots out in the distance and so on. So that will bring up those shadows. And then you've got max range. I wouldn't recommend max range unless you've got a real challenge in terms of pulling up the massive, great big shadow fall off and huge, great big highlights, because it does stretch that dynamic range as much as it can.
So it's there as a get out of emergency rip pull.
Yeah, it's there as I want all of that color grade, but I don't have enough detail.
Okay.
So I can pull stuff back. So in each of these cases, as I'm hovering, it's applying it to the background layer. And this is one thing that it applies to not just this style pack, but any style pack. Please don't apply them to the background layer. Because, and we'll go through a workflow in a second, if I apply it to the background layer, it's going to take any adjustments I've already made to the background and overwrite them with the style's changes.
Yep.
The challenge with that is, if I've already made some tweaks to the background, I'm going to lose them. But equally, if I want to undo anything or maybe scale back that style, as we all know, on the background layer, I can't change that. It's all or nothing. So it's been done to effectively the base layer. I don't have opacity control, and I'd have to go into every single tool and wind it back or wind it up.
Yeah. Much more laborious.
So if I apply this instead to a new layer, which I just did earlier, I always turn that back on. Number one, I've got a one-click backwards and forwards with opacity. So I can say, actually, I like that style, but only at 55%. Okay. But I can still also go into all of these different settings and I can change them. So in this case here, if I wanted it actually to be maybe a bit heavier contrast, I can do that. A bit more saturation maybe. Okay, now I've modified the style. The advantage to the person using this is now I've done that, I can right click here and save that modified style as my own.
Yeah.
So I can take all of these styles and create new ones.
You're not going to be hurt if people do that either, are you?
Absolutely not. No. So genuinely, let's pick on a. So we'll go through the styles in a second. But let's just apply vivacity onto
right click to apply to a new layer. If anyone was not aware of that, it's super handy for any style.
Yeah, any style whatsoever. You can right click and apply to a new layer. If I go into this style, yes, there are color balance changes. So we've got some changes in there. We've got some changes in the curve as well and whatever. There are also advanced color editor changes in there. So there's small little changes across different elements of the color wheel. Now, in terms of being able to alter that, well, I love the idea that someone can go in there and say, do you know what? That style is, for my taste, pushing blues to be too dark or something like that. So go in here, edit, save it as your own style, Vivacity 7 or whatever you want to call it. But the idea of this is it's going to expose the right tools to people to understand what the tool is doing. And then actually you've got, absolutely a one-click access to some color grades. But more importantly, you've got the ability to deconstruct what those grades have done and then create your own styles or style brushes.
Yep.
That goes for that as well.
Yep.
All in one go. And yes, as David says, so in terms of applying a style, let's just turn this one off. Let's just delete that layer. You go through the styles here. This will give you a rough preview of what the style is going to do. It's not necessarily going to give you an accurate preview because it's what's based on applying to the background. that is what you're seeing here.
Yeah.
When I apply it to a new layer, it's going to take any changes I've already made to the background and then apply the style on top. So as a general workflow, what we'd always recommend is get your background layer right first. So lens corrections, white balance correction. We don't shift white balance in a style. No style should be necessarily doing that. So get the picture looking okay first, then style it. It's a style. That's the whole point. It's not a picture developer. It's
not
a style.
edit my picture for me. Yeah, it's a style.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, running through these. So we've got Blockbuster. So Blockbuster is designed to be that sort of orange and teal look. It's designed to give you a very, very cooled down feeling into a city. So especially in some cities that still have a lot of orange light. Obviously, cities are moving to white lights and LEDs, but for now, that sort of orange glow. Blockbuster will deal with that. This one, Hot Rod. So Hot Rod is absolutely a red and black sort of enhancer, I guess. So this one of Hong Kong, so I can apply that one. So in this case, I want to increase the shadows because it's got a dark shot. So let's go to our before, like that. And that applied in there. And also remember, not only have I got opacity control, so I can change that to be not quite so red and black through to, maybe there. I can also stack styles. So the whole idea of being able to put them on a new layer is not just about being able to control and edit the style. It's actually about the fact that I can now go in and say, well, let's add, I don't know, vivacity on top. So add to that a new layer. So I've now got two styles, one on top of the other. And that one is further enhancing. So that's without, and that's with. And again, I can back these away. So I can say, actually, I want 75% of that style, 50% of that style, and maybe that gets me to where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But this is about layering and being able to tweak individual tools within individual styles yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Question from Joe.
Yep.
Says, so do the style at the very final thing? I guess not the final. You're getting
not the final thing.
you're removing those situational errors, I guess, like the exposure, the white balance, as you said.
Exactly. Yeah. So what we're looking for is, let's call it a clean base image. So by clean base image, what I'm referring to is I would do your keystone for sure, especially with Auto Keystone now.
Yep. Thank you.
So
a note to our sponsors. First. Yep, Keystone first.
Lens corrections as well in that pack, and that includes diffraction and it includes chromatic aberration, especially diffraction when you're shooting cities at a very small aperture. Get your white balance to a reasonable place. So on cities, we'd always recommend in Capture One terms between 2600 and 2900, around that. That's sort of a cool city look. You might want to do a little bit of exposure changing. Remember, the style is going to do some stuff with highlights and shadows and stuff like that.
But not exposure, so, I guess.
But not exposure. So get your exposure sort of as well in the histogram as you can. Obviously not always possible. And then apply a style, and that will give you, and that's my point, I guess, you get to that sort of 70% place there. If you apply the style and it's like done 100%, brilliant, save.
Yeah,
to export that and off you go. But you then may want to do extra stuff and tweak. There's things like healing and cloning. Some people choose to do it earlier, some people choose to do it later. Personally, I would be tempted to do it a bit later simply because the calculation that has to be done for a heal layer, if you then start loading on style layers on top of it, it's got to do more, in theory, every time I try and change a little tweak in the style. So I would be doing the style first to get that overall look, and then doing things like healing and cloning possibly as a last move.
Yeah, and you never know, you might end up healing or cloning something that is not super noticeable anyway once you've applied.
Exactly. If we throw it into a shadow, job done.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all done. So that's, where are we? That's Urban Chill is designed to be something. So this is out of the camera. This is out in London. Urban Chill is designed to mute down those cities. So if you've got a city that's particularly hot, in this case, it's there's a little bit of too much yellow in there. There's a little bit too much green even out on some of these reflections because of the glass color. Urban Chill will just cool it down and mute it, but also recover all the highlights. So as I go into here, even though we've lifted shadows, so this is actually the shadow lift version, I've still got access. You see these highlights here on this building. When I go into here, we've got all the detail in here, all the texture of the stone and stuff like that. So it's a really good way if you want to just calm down a city, then that one's the right answer. If you want to do the opposite, make a city start to glow. So this is Shanghai. Vivacity is designed to literally pump certain tones and certain colors in the city. And they're the tones that typically are the lights in the city. Right. So they're street lights, they're headlights and taillights, and they are things like neon signs. So those things will glow. Shanghai is a little bit unique in a city. There are a few cities that have this sort of light show going on.
Yeah, multicolored street lighting.
Yeah. But so Vivacity is designed to pump it a little bit. Then on landscape, so the elevation pack comes in 2 folders. So you've got the elevation sort of top folder, you've got cities. And again, as we said, you've got the default style, the highlights version, the shadow lifting version, and then the max.
And max range does basically highlights and shadows together, I assume.
Correct. Yeah, so it's almost a combination. It's actually backed away a little bit from that. So it's not quite as much shadow recovery, not quite as much highlight recovery overall,
right?
As would be if you did both of them together. But it's just in case you really need to push it. Now, for me, this is about if I need to push the dynamic range more than the color grade, that's when the max version comes in.
Right.
Because I'm probably going to have to back it away a little bit, but I've got all the detail back. That's the key thing.
So really max range is rarely you would use that on the background as it stands.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So that's your get out of jail one. So landscapes. So we start with En Rouge, which is designed to, well, you can see there, the color here, we're completely transparent. So there's some color editor that's designed to pull down colors that aren't on the red side. Then there's some clever stuff in some other tools that then bring out the reds. So we can go from here to there. Again, one click. If that's not enough, we can push it some more. If it's too much, we can pull it back. But it's designed to shift that feel of the image from being warm, the green tints and so on that come sometimes, and then pushing that all towards the red side. Hence its name. I just stole it from French. So we use something to make it look classy. So this shot actually, so this is out in Emerald Bay out in Tahoe. This shot on landscapes actually takes a lot of different styles. So it can take En Rouge, it can take Golden Hour, which was what we'll talk about in a second. It can take all of these, in fact. So Golden Hour images can pretty much take any of these styles, including the city styles as well. But Golden Hour is designed, and this is one of the most common things that we see. The raw data that comes out of the camera is a bit flatter than we remember at sunset or sunrise. And this isn't, so you can see we're not adding detail, we're not doing anything stupid, but what we are doing is just getting some of that color back from the sky. We're just lifting some of the details, getting some highlights back, and just warming effectively the overall feel of that picture. So, and again, you've got, this one is the shadow recovery, so we've got the detail of the tree back here because these are pretty much gone in the original. So we've got shadow recovery. Oops, we've got a weird, okay, we'll put that down to internet. Shadow recovery is lifting all the detail in the dark areas. The highlights minus version is getting all the detail back in the sky. But as you can see, in Golden Hour, even though this is a shadow recovery one, it's still also recovering some detail in the sky.
So the highlight one would be for those more extreme cases.
Exactly. If you've got the scenario where you're almost blown, then use the highlight recovery one in there. But this will effectively give you back a Golden Hour. And again, if that's, okay, I want sort of a little bit less, then we back it away. Cool. Because we've got that opacity control. And
Golden Hour, that would be either an hour after sunrise or an hour before sunset.
So it depends where you are in the world as to how long it lasts for. But basically, at the point that you start seeing color in the sky at sunrise, through to the point where the sun gets a bit harsh, so either side of sunrise, and at sunset, again, at the point that you start seeing those colors develop in the clouds. So the clouds go from being white to being sort of either golden or reddy color or whatever, through to, and top tip, when the sun goes down, don't leave.
Yeah.
Some of the best color in the world is after the sun has gone
Yes.
down.
Yeah.
So that period of time, and just to bring back that feeling of when you were there. And just take this example. So this one, and again, just what we were saying earlier, background layer, make any base changes. You might want to do a healing layer if you choose to. I think we've got some healed spots on here. There you go, dust spots. Yay! So that stuff. But then let's go to our golden hour and let's apply that to a new layer. So again, we go from that, nothing wrong with that shot, but that just feels more like a sunset shot. And again, we can control how much that's applied.
Question from Turin. Is it only applicable to landscapes and cityscapes? So I haven't tried it on anything else myself.
I've tried it on a few of them. I would not recommend Vivacity on a human being.
Right.
For unless you're trying to show off makeup, it actually works really well with that. Some of them will work, and in fact, Morning Coffee is an example of one that will. We'll show that in a second. But just be careful because we're toning these to be specifically around golden hour and night times in cities. It doesn't mean it won't work on a person, but it's going to depend on the tones in the image. Okay. Because that's what this is matched to.
That was based on. And Barry was asking, would you recommend film standard on the curve setting before adding styles? No need to mess around with linear response or anything, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess, the only thing that you'll notice really, so in all the styles we protect the contrast range. So auto for capture one, which is pretty much the same as film standard for a lot of camera models, will automatically put in a bit of an S-curve. So it's going to boost the contrast a little bit to start with. The styles are designed to be protected if you do that. If you go for linear response, you're going to get exactly the same shift in the style, but the output will be just less contrasty.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a flatter image. Personally, I find film standard works for about 80 to 90% of my images. I'll use linear response if we need to recover something.
Yeah.
But yes, it will work on that.
Question from Jeff, which I think is sometimes the answer. As a Fuji shooter, can I set a film simulation on the background and apply a different style via a style layer? As to your background, you can't brush in a Fuji film style on a layer, but you could use a style such as what we're looking at here on a layer. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's sort of, unfortunately, we're confusing the two things. So your film profile is almost, if you think about it as, unfortunately, I'm going to use the word, but layers. Before you even get to your background layer, that film profile has been loaded in. So that's underneath your background. Yeah. What we're talking about here is what you can do on top of the background. So they're two different things. We can't really apply a film simulation on top of this and brush it in, but equally I can't make a style become a film simulation. They're two slightly different.
And the film simulations are a bit more involved than the style anyway, as it's
shifting a lot.
Yeah. So but Jeff, you can have your Fuji film sim and you can put a style on top of that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Let's continue.
So where were we? Morning Coffee. So this is San Francisco on a relatively flat. Funnily enough, I've just realised this is actually at sunset. We used this one for morning coffee as a sunset shot. Okay, so there's evening coffee as well.
Change the time in the metadata.
So this is a perfect example of, with cities, and I'm using a city here specifically because it obviously does the same thing on a landscape, but we always try and sharpen everything up. We always go for detail, clarity, pulling back highlights, pulling up shadows and whatever. Sometimes that doesn't match the feel of it. So morning coffee is designed, let's just apply that to a new layer. And let's go into here. It's designed to give you that sort of first thing in the morning light. When your eyes first open, when we were testing this stuff earlier, David, when I'd just woken up.
You just woke up. So it is 6:30 for you right now, isn't it?
Yeah. No, 7:30 now.
7:30. A bit more civilized.
But it's designed to give you a slightly softened look, a slightly less clarified look. and to give you that sort of morning glow. Sorry, moved over another style. To give you that morning glow of any light. So any light it's going to enrich, it's going to warm up. And any areas with high contrast is going to start to try and bed them down a little bit. So you get a really warm feel to what was actually quite cold light.
Yeah.
As far as the camera is concerned. But that's on a city. Obviously, I can go into here. Let's just remove golden hour and put on a morning coffee. So that's exactly the same shot.
Just a warning from Atmospherial, by the way, your battery is at 10%.
Oh, cool. That's interesting.
So if Paul disappears, we know why. Yeah.
Sorry about that. So that's weird, actually. That's very strange. So all good in terms of using that. But it's designed, again, it's a look. And it's a case of sort of going through and finding out the ones that work for you. Finally, Seagrass. This has actually got another one loaded on by the look of it, but a bit weird. So Seagrass, if you think of Iceland, if you think of mossy shots, you think of cold stuff and whatever else. Sometimes on the camera it doesn't quite come out that way, and we just want to cool it down. So that's what Seagrass is for, and it works on sites like Big Sur, so down on the California coast. If you want it to be a bit more cool, a bit more, I guess, also vegetative, is that a word? Or whatever.
Yeah.
But if we want to really pull out foliage and stuff like that, that's exactly what that's for.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So those are the 8 that are in there. Each one's got 4, and the workflow is very simple. Get your background right first, make those changes, do any lens corrections, maybe do healing, but that can be done last. Apply a style to a new layer, back it away if you need to, and then tweak, play, pull them apart genuinely. Open them up, see what we've done, create your own. Because not only can I create a modified version of that style, I can actually create it as a style brush.
Yep.
I can brush in golden hour or whatever into certain areas in the shot.
Yeah, exactly. If you just wanted to apply it to foreground, sky, or whatever, then that would be great as a style brush. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Question from, actually, you've just answered that. It was someone asking about style brushes earlier. And if you haven't used style brushes, I did put a link to the tutorial in there. Super easy to use. If you're a bit nervous about working with layers, that's just a really accelerated way to brush in an adjustment or a style into select places. So give that a try. I am just going to share my screen for a second.
Sure.
Paul,
I'm just going to plug my laptop in.
Yeah, you do that before we lose you. So I just wanted to show everybody this actually, which is the install guide that comes with the styles, which is not unusual. We always have an install guide, but what's been extended with this pack is that there's a really good explanation for each of the styles, what it's ideal for, and tips on how to use them as well. So if you've forgotten everything Paul has just said, then you've got your handy reference card for each of those as well. So that's a really valuable addition to the style pack. And if you want to buy the style pack, which of course would be nice, then you just need to head to, if we just go over to captureone.com, let me just put that link in the chat as well, so everybody can see that. Hopefully that makes it to Facebook and YouTube, so you can pick those up too. You'll see the price here is in pounds for my location currently, but that will also be reflected with your own currency depending where you are. So let me just check for questions, otherwise we can let people go on their way. Brian says, nice style set and demonstration. You're very welcome, Brian. You know where to find them if you want to add them to your Capture One. Tony says, I've been using the styles for a week and I've created some of my own styles from these. Good work, Tony. Great. And style brushes. Golden Hour is a much used style brush for morning and evening skies. Really useful. That's good.
Yeah, I think just in those ones, what I've found is there are some that. So, actually, to give a bit of background, these are styles that we haven't just made for other people. These are styles that I use,
Right.
and they're literally things. Ironically, in the creation of these styles, realized how many times I've clicked the same button over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Could have done them as a style a while ago, but there are probably 2 or 3 that are key. That I will use again and again, and there are other ones that are sort of on the fringes that I think every now and then a picture will come up and it's the right one for that sort of style. But things like Golden Hour, things like Hot Rod for Cities are key ones that if you start applying them to cityscapes or landscapes, you'll start to see that look starts to appear, and genuinely take those, create your own style, just like Tony said. And start to do the same as what we've done here, which is build a collection of styles that you use on certain pictures. They may be the raw ones that we provide in the style pack. They may be modified ones, in which case, great. Make them your own. Use what we've done and build on it. Great stuff.
Excellent. Question from Gabrielle. I'm not sure of the answer actually. Can you use the style back on Capture 121? Yes.
I'm sure because I had to find out.
Right.
So yes, 21 and above. So
21 and above. Okay.
As long as basically, so we use some of the tools that were introduced in 21. So in 20, there are certain things in the style pack that just won't apply. So 21 and above, you're fine.
Yeah, great. That is maybe the same question. How long are the styles supported? I assume that's the same question. So 21.
Well, I guess no. I think that's the more future-looking statement. So right. the style itself, just to give you a bit of a glimpse on this. So what I've spoken to the guys in Denmark about is these are styles that we will keep updating along the lines of current versions of Capture One. So we will keep that update going because. In part, we need to keep using them, yes. which is one thing. But yes, the idea is that the style, for a start, it uses tools that will be carried on into the future, so that shouldn't cause any issue. I still use some version 11 styles,
exactly.
22 now, so that bit's fine. But equally, if there are new tools that come along and we think, oh, there could be a tweak and a better way of doing that, you might find an update to Elevation for that too.
Great. And let's finish on George's comment. He says, for the first time I purchased styles, I got excellent results on many photos, including on Fujifilm simulations. That's good. Great job, Paul. Yes. Thanks for giving us access to this.
We didn't screw up his photos. Excellent.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's
always genuinely. Well, I was going to say genuinely on that. The amount of testing that's been done on these because of that, and I'm hoping that we can get to a place where people, because obviously different cameras behave different ways as well.
Definitely, yeah.
We've got something that, and again, it's that 70% rule. We've got something that's great and safe to get everyone to a good place. Then take the stuff that your camera does really well and really start to push that. And that's going to be unique to you and your style.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea is that it should do good things to images.
Yes, well, I should hope so too. Right, there we go. We can let you get back to shooting in Arizona, wasn't it? So yeah, what's today's location then?
Today is 4 hours on the road and probably arguing with a rental car company.
Nice.
And then we will go out to a lake that apparently has got no water left in it.
So, excellent. Well, that could be interesting. Yeah. Oh, and another final comment, sorry. Claude, I installed the elevation style, works great. I tried morning coffee on a portrait shoot in the wood, and it gave me good results after some tweaks. Thank you. Great. There we go. Cool. So portraits too. Excellent. Add that to the list. Right. All right. Now we will say goodbye. So thanks for joining us, Paul. Enjoy your rental company argument and driving. And we'll see you all soon. So thanks for joining us once more. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Paul. Bye.